This is billed as a town meeting, by the way. And what that means is you get to ask questions. So after I take a little while here, we're going to turn to you and let you ask any question you'd like. And I'll answer most of them. And and I'm also going to have the congressman add his thoughts to the answers to the questions, unless you'd like to just ask him directly, and you're welcome to do that as well. And Congressman Sensenbrenner's over there. He's saying, you know, I'm just watching here. I answer enough questions all day long. I just want to tell him how much I appreciate his vote and his vote of confidence that he just described a moment ago. This is a great leader who for many years has led the fight for the people of Wisconsin and the people of America. And I appreciate his leadership in Congress. Thank you. Thank you, Congressman. And I also appreciate the team here at More Oil to have cleaned out a little spot here for us. And I'm not sure what's in those barrels, but don't smoke in here, okay, guys? This would not be a good idea. And I hope business is good, and I hope it's going to be getting better. I'd actually like to see us do a better job getting more of the stuff they put in those barrels. But I'll come back to that in a moment. Yeah, they used to deliver that stuff, you know, in just regular trucks, but now they have to go around in armored vehicles when they deliver that, you know. Price of oil has gone so high. But I want to just first tell you how much I've enjoyed what I've been able to do the last few days, and frankly over the last year, which is to go across the state and before that across the country and meet people across America. If all you get to do, which most of us get to do, is to see America by virtue of the evening news, you might tend to be a bit saddened or discouraged. Because by and large, the people who make the news are doing unusual things. Typically not good things, or they wouldn't make the news. But I've been able to go and meet people who are living American lives in the ways that you and I do, and find extraordinary people. I come away with more confidence in our future because there are some features in America that are still there. We're hardworking. We believe in purposes greater than ourselves. We love our country. We're very patriotic people. At the same time, people recognize that we're going through tough times. And as I speak to people, rarely do I find someone who says, oh boy, things are great and I have no worries about the future. Very confident about what the future holds. Most of the time people say that things are okay, they're facing tough times, but they're concerned about the future for their kids and for their kids, and sometimes for themselves. I was in Appleton, met a couple there, husband and wife. Both work in sales. One at a department store. She sells fragrances, but she said, you know, sales are down, so you can't be as confident in keeping your job as she would like. Her husband works in sales in a business like this, which sells industrial products, and he said the company is small, and he's had to reinvent himself more than once. He's in his 60s now, as she is, and they've had to find ways to keep things together. They had expected to be nearing retirement. And the duplexes that they had purchased as income-producing properties, however, have lost about 30% of their value in the last 2 or 3 years. So there's more anxiety than they thought they'd be experiencing in their 60s. Then I met a guy in St. Louis. He was working at an advertising agency, left, and with his son started a business making amplifiers for electric guitars. And they had a couple of employees, but the Obama economy has been tough, so they laid off the 2 employees, and now they're just doing it on their own. But they're confident the future will be bright. I met a guy who worked for the city, and he was working, I think, in the landscape division for the city. He decided to leave because he knew enough about mowing lawns to start his own business, and I think he said he had 200 employees now, working cutting lawns, using snow blowers. He said they didn't use them much this winter. And he said his big worry is that the cost of gasoline is making it hard for him to go from home to home to home with the trucks that he takes around. And he's worried that the EPA will start imposing regulations on the emissions of carbon from his lawnmower. You understand how that's being talked about, Jim? And he says there's no way, given the thin margin that exists in his business, he could go out and buy all new equipment that the government would mandate. So we've had a lot of people that I've seen that are optimistic, hardworking, patriotic, but at the same time discouraged. One I'll mention to you that was kind of inspiring to me. I met a guy named C.C. Civ, and he mentioned that he'd come to this country, I believe it was 1976, from Cambodia, and came here, worked in a restaurant, and then worked as a cab driver in New York City, and saved his money, and was able to get a business school degree, and began working in government, got to know some of the political leaders, and lo and behold, about 14 years after he became a resident of the United States, having come here from Cambodia, he's named as the United States Ambassador to the United Nations. Can you imagine? And he said, you can't imagine what feelings would go through my mind as I would stand and say before the nations of the world, I'm here speaking in behalf of the people of the United States of America. He said, what a nation we live in. What other nation in the world would offer such opportunity to someone who came here not speaking the language, from a foreign land, cab driver, restaurant worker, becomes United Nations ambassador. What an amazing land we live in. I love America. Love the people of America. This president made a number of promises when he was running 3 years ago, 4 years ago. He said he'd cut the deficit in half. He's doubled it. He said he was going to cut taxes for middle-income Americans. He hasn't. As a matter of fact, when you consider the extra taxes you're paying that he put on businesses and they pass that along to you, why, he's raised taxes on middle-income Americans. He also said if he wasn't able to turn around the economy in 3 years, he'd be looking at a one-term proposition. We're here to collect, all right? Let's take it back. And he points out that he did not cause the recession, and that's true. But he was the one we looked to end the recession and to lead a recovery, and he didn't. Today we have a record number of people on food stamps, over 45 million. Record number of home foreclosures, 2.3 million. 30% of single moms and their families are living in poverty. 30%. Record levels of poverty in this country. Unemployment, he said he'd keep under 8%. Itself a very high level, 8%. He said he'd keep it under 8% if we let him borrow $787 billion. And it has not been under 8% since 37 months ago. So this president's economic policies have not been the result of an American turnaround, but instead they prolonged the recession, made it deeper, and made it harder for us to come out of it. His economic strategy was a bust. And one of the reasons we're going to take over the White House is because he does not know how to make this economy work. And we do. These little ones over here have learned about politics at a very young age. They've learned how to really shout and scream just at the right time. Mom, you're doing a great job teaching those kids politics. I love it. I need them to come with me at every rally I go to, all right? Thanks, girls and son. The president said something interesting over the weekend. He said that in an ideal world, government could spend as much as it wanted. In his ideal world, spending more and more money and building a bigger and bigger government is the object. In my ideal world, government spends less and government is smaller. It's a very different vision for America. And both Congressman Sensenbrenner and Congressman Ryan indicated that this is a time of a choice for America. And I hope around the country people understand what's at stake in this election. This really is a vote about what the nature of America is going to be over the next 4 years and probably over the next century. We're going to have a choice of what kind of America we're going to have. On the ballot will be economic freedom, religious freedom, America's greatness, our military might, whether we're going to pass on to our kids massive debts, that we will have left for them, knowing that we can't possibly repay them ourselves, and we'll expect them to pay the interest and the principal over their lifetimes. This is a question about what America we're going to leave to our kids and what America we're going to have in the remainder of our lives. We have a president whose vision is, as I said, to spend more and more with a bigger and bigger government. Today, government at all levels consumes 38% of the economy. 38%. And if we let Obamacare stand, they will directly control not just that 38%, but now almost up to half of the total economy. And then with the intrusiveness of regulations in places like energy and automotive and healthcare and transportation and so forth, you would have a government that directly or indirectly controls well over half of the economy. You have to ask yourself, do we want to have an America where free enterprise is very much in question? An economy which is led by government. Is that where we want to take America? This president is also comfortable with massive deficits. Trillion-dollar deficits. First president in history to break $1 trillion every year in office. Trillion-dollar deficits. Adding trillions of dollars to the debt. I have a very different view. My view is we have to have a government that's willing to finally, and I will, cut federal spending. Not just slow down the rate of growth. Cut federal spending. Cap it as a percentage of the economy. And finally balance the budget. And so freedom, and economic freedom. And by the way, the Congress mentioned something about taxes for small enterprises. Recognize what has built America's economy over the years. Why is it our income per person in America is 50% greater than the income per person in Europe? Our DNA is like the other human beings on the planet. What is it that makes a difference? It's that we have in this nation a commitment to the principles of the founding, which is that we were endowed by our Creator with our rights, not by the state, but by the Creator. And among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In America, we're free to pursue happiness as we choose. And so instead of a government directing our economy and our lives, individuals pursuing happiness as they wish, create enterprises, small and large, and the success of some helps lift the entire nation. It's what has built America. And what this president's doing, regulation after regulation, regulator after regulator, new tax after new tax, is slowly but surely crushing the dreams and the dreamers that build those enterprises, that make us vital and modern and leading the world. I want to return to the American people the right they have for economic freedom, for entrepreneurship, for innovativeness. I want America to be once again the most attractive place in the world for entrepreneurs and job creators. Why? Because I want higher wages. I want more jobs. I want economic vitality, and we're going to have it back. You see, in the president's government-centered society, he believes that government can do a better job running the economy. Government can do a better job picking winners and losers, or in their case, losers. And government can do a better job than you can in guiding your own life. There are few things more personal than deciding what kind of health insurance you're going to have and what kind of treatment you're going to have for a condition you might have. There's no question in my mind but that where Obamacare leads is government telling you not just what insurance you have, but also what treatment you're entitled to. And that's where the president will take us. If I'm president of the United States, we will stop Obamacare in its tracks and repeal it and return to you authority for your own life. I'm just going to mention one of the differences before you get a chance to ask a question or two. And that relates to our military. I don't think the world is a safer place today. I think the world is in tumult in certain regions of the world. And I happen to subscribe to what Ronald Reagan spoke of, which is that America's strength is the best ally peace has ever known. I want a strong military. This president, however, is comfortable with $500 billion in cuts to our military over this decade. He has spoken of reducing the size of our Navy further, reducing our purchases of aircraft, reducing the number of active duty personnel we have. My view is entirely different. I would add to our Navy. I would increase our shipbuilding from 9 a year to 15. I'd add to our purchases of aircraft. I would add active duty personnel. And I would make sure our veterans get the care they deserve. So this is a question about a vision for America. And we're going to have to ask ourselves who we are as Americans. Do we believe in free enterprise? Do we believe in economic freedom? Do we believe in personal freedom? Do we believe in larger and larger deficits and massive debts? These are the questions we're going to have to ask for 2012 and 2016 and for the years thereafter. We're going to have to ask if we're going to be true and faithful to the sacrifices made by the founders of this nation, the trust they gave us in passing on an America that's stronger and vital to the next generation. And I happen to believe that we're going to do that. I believe we're going to make the right course. I believe we're going to stay true to those principles. I believe that that's going to start here in Wisconsin, take the next step here in Wisconsin, rather, which is on Tuesday, I need you to go out and vote. I need your help. I need you to get out and vote. Get your friends to do the same thing. Give me the support we need to keep America, the America we know and love. And so with that rather lengthy introduction, I'm going to turn to you for questions you might have. Are you raising your hand there? Yes, you are. Please.
Yeah. I'm an Eagle Scout.
Excellent.
I am a Boy Scout. Looking back from the trip. Looking back from the trip from the scouting program out from Camp Row, from Camp Indian Mounds just now. This yesterday. So we heard that on TV. Says something about the Boy Scouts. Private stuff on the Boy Scout where the lands are and all this stuff. And then they heard that they went to the federal court and they got $99,000 from the court.
Well, I didn't see that story, so I can't comment on that story. But I can tell you this: I was not an Eagle Scout. I wish I had learned the lessons that Eagle Scouts learn. We would all benefit from that. But I have 3 sons who are Eagle Scouts. Now I have 5. You know I have 5, and that means the first 2 didn't get Eagles, and the reason for that is that Mom and Dad didn't know how important it was for Mom and Dad to help them in the process of becoming Eagle Scouts and to get them to get out there and do their service project. But we learned after the first 2 and then got it right for the next 3. And I love the scouting program. I love the principles of scouting. I love the fact that young men learn through the scouting program personal responsibility, respect for the flag, love of the country. I can tell you this, that some of those principles are very much imbued in my 5 boys, and I appreciate that enormously. I don't know. Did you make Eagle Scout?
No, but I got 2 Bobcats in the family. Didn't make Eagle. I made it to Bear.
You made it to Bear.
Yeah, I made it to Bear, but 2 Bobcats. We spent an overnight in Eagle Cave. Anybody know Eagle Cave? Those of you who are scouts in Wisconsin here, about 250 kids and their dads in a cave overnight. And the day after, you couldn't see a speck of trash anywhere in that cave. So, good people, good ethics, good morals. It's a fantastic thing.
That's great. Thank you. Yes, sir. You had your hand up there. Yes.
First of all,
Does that say Sooners? Oklahoma Sooners?
I'm actually from Los Angeles.
How did they let you in here? Well,
No.
You guys got a border security problem here. You know that? This is...
No, I'm actually from LA, but my family lives in Oklahoma, so I got it just on a trip. But first of all, I think both you are outstanding men. I'm an automotive technician. I've worked at several dealerships around Milwaukee. I love the automotive industry. I know your dad was heavily involved in it. With the person that is currently in the White House kind of waging a small war on cars and forcing them to get all kinds of fuel economy, ethanol, 15%, all kinds of stuff, I'm wondering what you're going to do. I know you have major plans, to do lots of things, but I'm wondering what you're going to be able to do to help, number one, sales of cars sort of go back up from where they are right now, because they're all down because of Obama's effect on the economy. And also, just what kind of, things maybe you would hope to do for small businesses and things of that nature. My wife's mother owns her own small business, and they're really struggling under the things that Obama has done. So just on both of those kind of points.
Thank you. I'll start off and turn to the congressman. Yeah, I love cars. I must admit, I'm a car guy. When you grow up in Detroit, you think that the whole world revolves around cars, and then you realize you're right. And I happen to have a great deal of affection for people who work in that industry and want to see it thrive and grow. There's no reason, in my view, that we can't be the leader in the automotive industry globally. I know that there's some people who feel that America can't compete. And the truth is, America can compete. There's not an industry that we have aspirations to be a leader in that we cannot be a leader in. And what's happened over the years is that government stepping in and trying to guide a political agenda, or perhaps trying to be more popular with our friends in Europe, has made it harder for us to compete in some respects. And managers have made huge errors in some businesses. And in some cases, I think in the automotive sector, I think the UAW asked for too much, and the management gave too much, and began putting in place legacy costs, retiree costs that got so large that the American companies couldn't compete with the foreign enterprises that came to the U.S. and made cars here. And so we started losing market share, and they tried to cut corners, I'm sure, trying to keep up with the fact that they had a huge cost disadvantage. I felt the industry needed to go through bankruptcy. I said that early on when the executives got in their planes and flew to Washington and asked for money. I said, don't write the checks. They need to go through bankruptcy and get rid of these excess costs. And they finally did. We finally did. And so I'm hoping they'll come back. I get nervous when I see what is apparently the president's team in trying to influence what's happening in the companies. If you want to have the American companies successful, they have to understand what the needs of the marketplace are and attune themselves to those. I'm not sure America was ready for the Chevy Volt. I mean, I hope it does well, but I don't want to disparage any product coming out of Detroit. But I think instead of having politicians tell us what kind of cars we had to make, we had to let the people who are trying to understand the market make that decision. With regards to business generally, I was disturbed to hear the head of Coca-Cola say that the business environment is friendlier in China than here. And he wasn't just kidding. When he looked at the tax rates here, when he looked at the regulatory environment here, when he looked at the heavy hand of government trying to pick winners and losers, the people in this country are saying, gosh, the business environment here is pretty tough. And when you add onto that Obamacare, which says to small businesses in particular, I'm going to get stuck with new health care costs I hadn't anticipated. And then if you have an administration that's trying to force unions into businesses where neither the employees nor the managers want them, as a small business person, you say, boy, I feel like I'm under attack. I mentioned to the guy who began the amplifier manufacturing business, he and his son, I mentioned that up front. They actually did a calculation, and I can't verify how accurate it is, but here was their perception. They added up what they pay in taxes. And it was their corporate income tax, federal, their state income tax, FICA, their gasoline taxes, and their real estate taxes. And when they added it up, they said 65% of what they make goes to government. Well, when you consider the regulations and the taxes, the cost of high energy here, because we don't have an energy policy that takes advantage of energy resources here, and so forth, we're making it awfully hard on small business, particularly under this administration. And under this administration, the number of small businesses started per year has dropped by 100,000. If we want to get our economy going again, we've got to have a president who recognizes, as I do, that the right way to get the economy going is to make America the most attractive place for small business, for entrepreneurs, for innovators. and to get jobs going again. Congressman?
Well, first off, my wife's from Oklahoma, so I'm familiar with the Sooners. We were in the market for a dog last year, and we were going to call our dog Bucky, Bucky Badger. But then we kind of liked the dog, so we bought the dog's brother. So we got 2 dogs, so now our dog's named our Boomer Sooner, which is the mascots for the Sooners. Okay, there's one person from Oklahoma who liked that line. Here's what I would say. The president likes to think that he can micromanage every little facet and aspect of our economy from Washington. If we just take more power and decision from our communities, from our businesses, and give it to really smart technocrats, they can organize and micromanage life for you better than you can for yourself. Take a look at the bailout that they're priding themselves on. Look, I live in Janesville. I represent Kenosha. I represent Oak Creek. That's 4 auto factories we lost since 2008. Ask the car dealers who got their dealerships taken away from them in this politically driven bankruptcy process. The president is practicing cash for clunker economics. Cash for clunker didn't work. And it doesn't work when you take that idea and apply it to the rest of the economy. Take money from successful businesses, take money from families, send it to Washington, swish it around to bureaucracy, and then send it back to your favorite constituencies. Pick winners and losers. And what happens with that kind of big government? You end up with corporate welfare. You end up with cronyism. You end up with $500 million of loan guarantees to bankrupt Solyndra firms. That is not the American idea. That is not entrepreneurial capitalism. That's crony capitalism. We don't want that kind of capitalism. We want to get out of the way of entrepreneurs and businesses so they can succeed. I will simply say this at the end. 9 out of 10 of our businesses in Wisconsin, they're not big corporations. They're successful small businesses. They're the businesses that pay their taxes as individuals. And the president is promising, if reelected, in his budget that he's been calling for, that the effective top tax rate on these successful businesses goes as high as 44.8%. How do you compete in a global economy when you're taxing your employers twice as much as your foreign competitors are taxing their employers? The answer is you don't. And so we just have a different perspective. The genius of America is the individual, it's the family, it's the entrepreneur, the small business, not the government. And so that's a philosophy that we have to repudiate in this fall so we can get the American dream and the American economy back on track.
They've got a microphone for you. Watch this. There you go. Hi.
Hi. The HHS mandate, Governor, Congressman, what do you think is the motivation behind this administration's doing this?
You're talking
Health
about
and Human Services mandate.
the Obamacare mandate, you mean?
Not just the Obamacare mandate, telling churches
yes.
and religious organizations what they can do and what they can't do.
Yeah. Well, I think there is in this country a war on religion. I think there is a desire to establish a religion in America known as secularism. And I know that based upon reports, the Obama administration gave this a lot of thought, a lot of discussion. This was not some little side issue that no one thought about. They gave it a lot of thought. And they decided to say that in this country, that a church, in this case the Catholic Church, would be required to violate its principles and its conscience and be required to provide contraceptives, sterilization, and morning after pills to the employees of the church. And that came as a shock. As I think it was Mike Huckabee said, we're now all Catholics. Those of us who are people of faith recognize this is attack on one religion is an attack on all religion. And it's one more reason why we need to get rid of Obamacare. It's also one more reason why we need to get rid of Obama. And
speaking as a Catholic, I got to say how proud I am of Tim Dolan. Oh, man. It's pretty cool seeing the red hat on him, isn't it? It's kind of small on his head, though, isn't it? Yeah. We love Tim. He's a really good guy. This is a political philosophy. And look, Jim and I debate this in Congress all the time. I serve on the Ways and Means Committee, which is the primary committee that wrote this. And it's this belief that that our rights, they don't come from God and nature like they say in the Declaration of Independence. They now come from government. And so if we're to have this new philosophy where we have government-granted rights, it's a new philosophy that says then it treats our constitutional rights as revocable privilege from our government rather than the inalienable rights from our Creator that our founders protected. And so if these new government-granted rights, such as health care, and in this particular health disease prevention is where this preventative measure, it's called preventative medicine. If this new government-granted right conflicts with our individual rights, like our First Amendment right to freedom of religious liberty, freedom of conscience, then it trumps it, then it crowds it out. If the president is willing to do this kind of a controversial mandate, which they did give great thought to, they met with Tim Dolan a couple of times, he made it really clear, you'll shut down Catholic hospitals, Catholic charities, Catholic churches, not to mention the schools and things like this, not to mention you're making people violate their own doctrine, their own religious teaching. If that's what this president is willing to do in a tough election year, imagine what he'll do after the election if he never has to face the voters ever again in fulfilling the rest of Obamacare.
Yeah, he'd have more flexibility.
Yeah, that's what's so scary about this thing. So yeah, more flexibility. Yeah, isn't it unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this is a moment where we have to reassert our constitutional rights. Our rights that are ours as individuals before government. And if we embrace this philosophy the president is asking for, then we're giving him our power that we have as individuals, and we should never give our government that kind of power.
Governor Romney, thanks for being here in Wisconsin. By the way, welcome. My buddy John and I here, we both own businesses. I sold my last one last fall and have started up a new one. And the health care costs, I have 4 children under the age of 10, have skyrocketed the last couple of years. And my biggest concern as I seek to hire employees is how can I afford that for them? So I know you're going to repeal Obamacare. Hopefully the Supreme Court will strike it down. But my question is, how are you going to help small business owners like John and I when we go to hire people? How do we make that more affordable going forward?
Yeah, we've got a strange health care system in a lot of respects. The issue that Obamacare should have dealt with, he should have dealt with the high cost of health care and should have dealt with malpractice and other features that cause health care to be expensive. But instead he focused on something entirely different. In my view, what we're going to have to do in health care to get the cost down is to get health care to be a market more like consumer-driven markets that we're used to as opposed to a government-dominated and driven sector of our economy. Healthcare in America is about 18% of our total economy. In the next highest country in the world, it's about 12%, Switzerland. It's a huge difference in cost here, massive difference in cost. Why is that? It's in part because in this country we're running healthcare like we run other things the government runs, Amtrak and the post office, not terribly well. And if you want things in America to be lower cost with better and better quality, then you try and get them to work with the kind of principles that exist in the consumer market. Now, why do I say that isn't the case in healthcare? Well, I'll tell you. If you're unfortunate enough to get a very serious condition, and you have the insurance most people have, which is you have a deductible. You pay the deductible, and after that it's free. And so you'll go to a doctor or a hospital. You'd never think of asking how much it's going to cost because you don't pay the bill. The insurance company does. In other countries, by the way, like Switzerland, they have the patient pay 20% of the bill for elective surgeries. And of course, if it's an emergency, they don't. But that gives you the chance to shop around. I was with a doctor who's an orthopedic surgeon. He said, I found that when people who have health savings accounts, and that means they're going to pay a share of their health care cost, with people with health savings accounts, when I tell them they need an MRI, they say, where can I get one at the best price? He said, when people don't have a health savings account, they just say, where's the closest one I can get an MRI? And so we need to bring into health care an incentive for people to shop around and to find out who does the best job at the lowest price. I like to see that happen state by state, experiment with ways for that to happen. Part of making that happen is allowing people to buy insurance themselves and own their own insurance rather than have to have their company buy it for them. Right now, companies get a deduction if they buy health insurance for you, But if you want to buy it yourself, you don't. So we make it a disadvantage for an individual to own their own policy. I'd like people to have the same treatment, whether they buy the policy themselves or the company buys it for them. Let them make that choice. Let insurers finally let people buy from places across the country. Let them have a health savings account type setting. If you bring in these kind of market principles, in my view, you'll get the cost of health care to start coming down like everything else in a free economy. Look, when America has challenges, you look to see, can we make it act more like a consumer market economy? I'm not naive enough to think that everything is solved by free market principles. But I'm also not naive enough to think that there are not a heck of a lot of problems that'd be a lot better run if we got the government out and turned back to the free market.
Real fast, because I can see it says sooner there. I got LASIK surgery at Madison at Davis Duerdien 10 years ago. It's an elective surgery, out of pocket. It now costs half as much today as it did then, and the surgery is 3 times as good. So it's not as if healthcare is immune from free market principles working, it's just that they haven't been tried. Here in Milwaukee, I had the General Accountability Office do a study. 300% average price disparity on healthcare in just the Milwaukee area. What we want is those providers, those doctors, those insurers, those hospitals competing against each other for our business based on price and quality, so that we're the center of the situation, nucleus of the society, of the marketplace, not the government. And so we need to inject those choice and competition principles in this part of the economy where it hasn't. And the one reason I wanted to stand up is because I saw Ted. Where did he go? Cannabis. Oh, you keep moving around. I just saw Ted Cannabis. That's because I had LASIK at Davis Duerdien 10 years ago. I see Ted Cannabis. I just want to single you out, Ted. Ted Cannabis is the chair of the Romney for Wisconsin campaign. Is Alberta here as well? No, but I just wanted to thank you, Ted, for all that you've been done too. I saw that late, so I just want to mention that. Thank you, Ted. That's all I want to say.
I got a gentleman over here. Yes.
Mitt, here's my question. I hope you don't mind me using your first name.
That's fine.
Okay. You talked in your earlier remarks about calling beyond yourself, I guess, and your decision to get into and run for the presidency of the United States. Obviously, that's not a light decision. You had that discussion with, I'm assuming, your wife, Ann. Just tell us your thought process on that, or some comments on that, if you would.
Yeah, thank you. Ann played a big role in this. She is fabulous. Ann is the best. She's absolutely extraordinary. I fell in love with her in high school, and I'm still passionately in love with that woman. And she's a fighter. She has MS, has done a great job overcoming that, and also battled breast cancer successfully. She's a champion, and she cares about people who have real challenges. 2 years ago, when we were thinking about this, I said, Ann, let's talk about the pros and cons. She said she wanted me to go back and run again. And I said, let's talk about the pros and cons. She said, talk to the hand. Talk to the hand. You're going to run. You have to run again. And her view was that having spent my life in business, small business, which I started, a bigger business that got in trouble, which I helped turn around, having spent my life in business, I understand how the economy works at the level of business. And by the way, when people talk about the economy, everybody, liberals, conservatives, they want a strong economy. Liberals, however, don't like business. What they don't understand is the economy is simply the addition of all the businesses in the country, all right? And so you got to like the business as well. And so I know a good deal about businesses and what's hard in a business and why you worry about hiring, or and when you have to have a business shrink, how painful that is, and how you know how much pain that's going to cause. I mean, it's a tragedy. I know about what happens when government makes a decision, for instance, about the steel industry, when it causes us to lose all sorts of facilities in this country and a lot of jobs in this country. I understand that firsthand, having spent 25 years in business. That experience, I believe, is essential if we're going to get our economy going again, get people back to work. And so that's part of what got me in here again. Number two, I'm really concerned about some of the problems we have in addition to our economy. I'm concerned, even if our economy were just doing terrifically, this idea of spending more than we take in every year, this is a problem. And we've got to have a leader in the White House who is willing to tackle tough problems, as opposed to just worry about getting reelected and pass the baton to their party. And you know, I remark, I am not in this race to further my political career because I don't have a political career, all right? This is not the next step for me. This for me is about taking the experiences I've had in life, learning how to make tough decisions, knowing how the economy works, and using that experience as a leader to help get our country back on track. And I want to make sure that the country we leave to my kids and my grandkids is the same great and grand country we've always known. I know we can do that. I've now met the people across the country to know we're ready for that kind of leadership. And I can believe I can provide it. Thank you. All righty. This gentleman back here, I'll leap over the guy who's got the torn MCL. ACL. It's an ACL, all right. And let this gentleman go first, and then I'll come back to you.
Well, first of all, thank you, Governor Romney and Congressman Ryan, for coming. It's great. At this time of the year, most of us are struggling with our income tax. And as you know, we have one of the biggest, largest convoluted tax returns in the world. See? And I would like to see you in one of your platforms to simplify our tax code. It's ridiculous that so many people can't do their own taxes.
Yeah. Well, now I heard the congressman answer this question better than I can last time we chatted. So I'm gonna have him describe just for a moment his plans on the tax code, which are very, very similar to my own. Remember Bowles Simpson, by the way, which was a Republican and Democrat came together and looked at changes to balance our budget and talked about simplifying the tax code by lowering the rates and limiting some of the deductions and exemptions, lowering the corporate rate, lowering the individual rate. Well, that forms very much the philosophy of the congressman's plan, my plan. I agree with you. Let's make taxes simpler. Let's also get our rates down so we're competitive. Today we have the highest corporate tax rates in the world. That means we will lose employers. They will go elsewhere over time, as sure as can be. We've got to simplify our code, get our rates down so we can keep businesses here and we don't overwhelm them with the complications of our tax code. Mention the GE story, by the way. That was amazing.
Yeah, so GE's a big employer in this area. Okay, GE's a big employer in this area, and they do a great job. I had the GE head of tax come in to see me. I serve on the Ways and Means Committee. This is the committee that gave you all the loopholes in the tax code over the number of years from both political parties. And just for an aside, what we're saying is clear out the loopholes, the special interests, the tax shelters, so you can lower everybody's tax rates. And on businesses, when it comes to corporations, as Governor just said, we have the highest in the world. Well, General Electric didn't have an income tax liability last year. They still made a lot of money. Now, that was legal. GE legally did not have a tax liability last year, even though they made something like $7 billion. So I asked the GE chief tax officer, well, how is it that you guys, didn't pay income taxes last year? He said, well, it's very complicated. We had a lot of write-offs and a lot of things. And I said, well, how big was your tax return? He said, it was big. Well, how big? He said, well, we file it electronically. We don't measure it in pages. Well, what would it be in pages if you did file it in pages? He said, well, I'll have to get back to you. 57,000 pages. You ever heard of that? I mean, you can't make this stuff up. And so you take a look at GE. Like I said, they did it legally. There's nothing legally wrong with this. It's government did this and gave them this kind of a tax code so you can contort your business plan to fit these things. But take a look at another big American business we're proud of, UPS, the brown trucks. They paid a 34% effective tax rate last year, but their big competitor, DHL, a German company, paid 24%. Here's what we're saying. Go to 25 for everybody. Bring GE up to 25, bring UPS down to 25, and make it equal and even and fair. So that's... Yeah. So they don't spend all their time in Washington trying to get some special carve-out, some special tax break. Get rid of all that stuff. Don't spend billions of hours complying, millions of dollars filling out forms. If you make the same amount of money as the next business or person, you ought to pay the same kind of tax that they pay and get Washington out of the business of picking winners and losers and help us grow our economy. That's what we're proposing.
Thank you.
My name is Robert Smizik. Gentlemen, Governor Romney, Representative Ryan, it's an honor and a privilege to be addressing you two today. Governor Romney, you've spoken in the past, persuasively I might add, about the economic necessity of reforming our naturalization and citizenship or immigration system in the past. My girlfriend is from Spain. She's studying at the University of Maryland, getting a master's degree. At the middle of May, her welcome in the country is effectively going to be taken away, and she's going to have to go back unless she can find a job to get a working visa. That's not so easy. Extra burdens are placed on companies if you're hiring a non-U.S. citizen worker. So my question will be 2 points. First of all, Governor, how much of a prerogative is this to you? How much of a priority is this for you to get actual reform done? And the second can be perhaps answered also by Representative Ryan. And then the second question is, how do you go about doing this? What kind of legislation would you specifically be looking for?
First, let me note something which hopefully will not be lost upon the people who've come into this country legally and illegally as immigrants. And that is, this has always been a priority for the President. He chooses to do nothing about. All right? He campaigned saying he was going to reform immigration laws and simplify and protect the border and so forth, and then he had 2 years with a Democrat House and Democrat Senate and a supermajority in each House, and he did nothing. So let the immigrant community not forget that while he uses this as a political weapon, he does not take responsibility for fixing the problems we have. My own view is our immigration policies are upside down, which is that we make it very hard for people who have skills that we need, education and English speaking and workplace skills. We make it very hard for those people to come here and to stay here. On the other hand, those that don't have any of those things are oftentimes able to come either across the border or overstay their visas and remain in this country indefinitely. And so we got it backwards. My view is if someone has a degree from an institution of higher learning, a master's degree, a PhD, staple a green card to their diploma. Welcome to here in the United States of America. We want those people in our country. At the same time, we want to make sure that we stop illegal immigration so we can protect legal immigration. Legal immigration is something we conservatives like. We love people coming here legally, particularly that speak English, that can work in jobs here, that can create new industries that are innovative. The immigrant population that comes here doesn't come here for a check. They come here for opportunity. These are our voters. And so I want to work on an immigration policy that secures the border and that also simplifies the legal immigration process so that we bring in people here that can help build our economy and build our future. And that is something I will not just talk about during this campaign. This will be a priority of mine if I become president, to make sure we finally reform our immigration laws step by step, secure the border, improve our legal immigration system so that we can keep people here and welcome people here that will make America a stronger nation. Congressman, thank you.
Not a whole lot to add. One of the foremost immigration experts is Jim Sensenbrenner. I would simply say that we also have to work on the issue of identity theft. This is a big issue that has to be dealt with so that people who come illegally can do so with identity theft. And the primary victim of identity theft with respect to immigration are people with Hispanic surnames, legal immigrants. So we need to fix that issue as well. So I've always believed that we need to sequence these reforms, the rule of law, the border, identity theft, and then fix the legal immigration system so that it works, so that we can place our efforts on making sure that we do not have an illegal immigration problem. This has to be something a president and the Congress makes a priority. This president has clearly not made it a priority. It's a broken system. It doesn't work for anybody, and we need to fix it so that we're not finding ourselves having to go back every 10 years, 86, 96, now, and fix it once and for all. And I think I disagree with exactly what you said, Governor.
Thank you. Thank you, Congressman. Thank you. You guys, I'm told you've been here for a while, and so I just want to say a couple of things and then get a chance to shake a couple of hands here. I got a message from the governor this morning, and quite a guy. You are a state of champions, by the way. You have some great leaders who take on tough issues and make you proud and serve the country well. But his message was, he had heard me speak the other day. He said, keep talking about the Olympics and your experience there. And so just I just wanted to tell you a bit about why I'm so confident in the future of our country. And this does relate to an experience I had at the Olympics. As you know, I had the occasion to help organize the Olympic Winter Games of 2002. And at the closing ceremonies, the Vice President, Dick Cheney, asked me to choose an American athlete to sit with him, to represent all the athletes of America. And I chose a fellow named Derek Parra. Derek's about 5'4", born in Los Angeles, Hispanic American. He's a rollerblader. And his friend said to him, you know, if you want to get an Olympic medal someday, you better learn another sport. And so he tried ice skates. And he was fast. And he worked at it hard and long and competed with some big guys, I imagine, from Wisconsin and Minnesota and Michigan, where I come from, and originally. And he became a member of the United States speed skating team, Olympic team. Came out there to the games, skated his heart out, got a silver medal in the 5,000 meters, then a gold medal in the 1,500 meters. Fastest man in the world on ice. Can't imagine being the best in the world at anything. And so I invited him to sit with the Vice President. As he was coming in, I said, Derek, what was the most meaningful experience in your games? And it was not the silver medal or the gold medal. He said, Mitt, it was being honored to carry in the American flag that had flown above the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001. He explained that he was one of the 8 athletes chosen to carry in the flag. It's about 8 feet by 12 feet, and it's torn and burned. And so you can't put it at a flagpole. You've got to carry it horizontally, which they did. He said when they announced the flag coming into the stadium, they expected the audience to burst into cheers. But instead, there was total silence and complete reverence. And he said, we carried the flag with emotion. And this, by the way, was only 5 months or so after 9/11 itself. And the flag holders were surrounded by members of the Port Authority police and police and firefighters of New York. And he said, we stopped in front of the choir and they began performing the national anthem. And he said it was hard to hold on to my emotion as I was holding that flag. And they were singing those words. And then he said, the choir did something I hadn't expected. Now I knew this was coming because I got to choose the version of the national anthem the choir was singing. And I chose a version from the 1930s arranged by Robert Shaw, where you repeat the last line 1 octave higher for the sopranos with greater orchestration. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. And this time, as it was sung in a reprise, he said a gust of wind blew in the flag and lifted it in their hands. And he said, Mitt, for me it was as if the spirits of all those that had fought and died for American liberty had just blown in that flag. And he said, tears began running down my face. That was my great experience also from the Olympics, one of many. And I've thought then and I think today that passion for America, the patriotism we have for this country, our conviction that this is the greatest nation in the history of the earth, our affection and appreciation for those who've gone before us and have sacrificed with their lives for our freedom. That conviction convinces me that America will rise to the occasion. The challenges we face, the debts we have, the government out of control, a government increasingly intrusive in our lives, Iran trying to become nuclear, we can overcome those challenges if we have leaders that will tell the truth and who will live with integrity, who know how to lead, who've actually led before, and who also will draw on the patriotism of the American people. And I intend to be one of those leaders with your help tomorrow. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks, buddy.